The living earth, the jaws of death, humanity's final breath, a dragon of ground, a dragon of earth, a dragon of worlds. Dun 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 dun. Okay, I'll start the video now.
Hello ladies and gentlemen, today I want to talk about the most fascinating monster that we've never seen, the most powerful creature that may not even exist. A third way to set up the gravitas of today's discussion, the Gaia dragon. This thing is absolutely badassly fascinating, and it's not often you get to describe something as badassly fascinating. Perhaps out of all the monsters that exist out there in the Monster Hunter world, but as of yet have not been called to appear in a game, this is the one I most want to see. Started life as one of the early concepts for the very first Monster Hunter game, but certainly has, or at least supposedly has, its canon place in the world at large of Monster Hunter. It's simply not come up. Whatever the case is, the fact remains, it's an incredible dragon, and one that, if it was to be realized, would likely match or perhaps even dwarf the black dragons in terms of strength. In fact, this is a monster that, if it were to be used in a Monster Hunter game, could function as the entire main story by itself. A monster that could give you 5 different armor sets by itself. A monster that could have 8 different forms, and none of them would feel like they were too many, or pointless, or a waste of time. And essentially, like an onion or an ogre, we have many layers to delve into. So what actually is the Gaia dragon? Well, it's this dirty, great, big, plant-covered brute wyvern that is an elder dragon, and that's already fascinating to me because, as I've oft said, I would love to get an elder dragon form of a brute wyvern. Amatsu is an elder dragon, but also clearly a leviathan. Dalamadur is an elder dragon, but also clearly a snake wyvern. So the Gaia dragon here would be a brute wyvern that is also an elder dragon, and that's very, very cool. But what is even cooler is that it has 3 distinct forms as it grows up. Much like Gore Magala is the juvenile form and then Shagaru Magala the adult, in this case it would be as if there's a third form after Shagaru or a middle form between Shagaru and Gore, giving you 3 distinct experiences, 3 distinct monsters, and therefore giving you 3 whole different experiences and armor sets and rewards, despite it all being technically the same creature. And already you see why that could build a Monster Hunter game by itself. You could make the juvenile the flagship, like Gore, and then have the, okay, it's a step up now, Elder Dragon, and then hit you with the final boss that's the third form, and I think that would be fascinating if you constructed the story around it, but I'm getting ahead of myself here. We have the juvenile, which is known as the ground dragon. This is a brute wyvern, but with wings, which is a very neat concept. This has one task: to fly out into the world and choose a locale to call home. And it really does have the choice of everything. As you see, this is one of the most adaptable beasties there ever was. It can choose to settle down in snowy tundra. It can choose to settle down in scorching volcano. It can settle down in desert or forest. It could even choose to land behind you. Look, that was worth doing for, like, the one person that actually did look. In any case, once it has landed, it's there for life. This is a big, important, permanent choice for this dragon. And as the juvenile, the ground dragon grows, feeds, well, it becomes the adolescent, the earth dragon. And its wings start to degrade as it swaps them for a more, well, ground-based lifestyle. And continue to grow it will, until eventually it reaches the full adult, the Gaia dragon. By this point, it has not only become one with its chosen locale, but its wings have petrified and dropped away, leaving 2 spikes of rock adorning its back. And now, as I said, its very flesh resembles its home. If it chose lava, it'd be covered in obsidian rock and flows of magma. If it chose the forest, it'd be lush with greenery, plant life sprouting from it, a veritable living bed of flora and fauna, a la Yamakurami. If it chose the tundra, it would be icy in its shell, the sheen and the frost emanating off of it. And you see now why I was saying that this monster could be the basis for an entire Monster Hunter game. You've got the juvenile, the adolescent, and the adult. That is 3 monsters, 3 fights, 3 armor sets. But for every single map you include in the game, you could have Gaia Dragon Fire mode, Gaia Dragon Forest mode, Gaia Dragon Ice mode, Gaia Dragon Desert mode, Gaia Dragon Coral Highland mode, which would be beautiful and magnificent, give it that watery effect. Basically, have a Gaia Dragon for every element and status across the entire world that your game is set in. And in each one, the fight is distinctly different. The same creature, yes, but these aren't subspecies or variants. They're still the prime animal, but in each environment. It would be a whole new, well, thing, as it were. And each one could give you a new armor set. You've got the armor set from Ice Gaia Dragon, you've got the armor set from Fire Gaia Dragon. Different bonuses, different skills. I don't know if it would be too much, perhaps, but imagine the same monster, 3 different age forms, and 5 different map forms, giving you 8 different armor sets, 8 different distinct fights, one of them being the flagship, one of them being the end boss, one of them being middle-tier Elder Dragons, and so on and so forth. You could really kind of construct a story around the Gaia Dragon, especially as it's so deadly. It's known as the Jaws of Death, since to come across one is to guarantee an almost immediate death. Of course, I do think the foresty jungle look suits it best. It reminds me of a boss I both hated and loved in Final Fantasy XII, the Elder Worm, which very much is similar to how I would imagine the Gaia Dragon to be in a wooded area. This thing can inflict every single negative status on you at once with this ridiculous spore attack, and the idea of the monster being able to put every single blight on you at once by flourishing the entire might of every plant around and every secretion going is really quite fun too. But I digress. This thing can eat anything. It's happy to munch on rock, it's happy to munch on meat, it's happy to munch on literally lava. It is essentially an unstoppable force of nature that kind of is nature itself. It is if, well, the very land personified into flesh to strike back at those, well, disgracing it. I mean, it's called the Gaia Dragon, named after Mother Earth herself. That is quite potent and poetic in equal measure, able to breathe out in great amounts whatever it is that it primarily consumes. So you could have ice breaths, fire breaths, spore breaths. Hell, you could even have like a Rotten Vale one that's effluviumed up, and it would be fine there too. The idea of a supremely adaptable monster that not only can live in any environment, but become one with it, thrive, change and transform and become more powerful because of it, is really appealing to me. And I think there is so much potential with the Gaia Dragon. And you might be looking at it and think, it kind of looks a little bit weirdly familiar. It does actually share quite a basic structure with Zora Magdaros without his shell, especially the, let's call them, back nobules. That's the scientific term, and that makes me kind of think that Zora perhaps was even slightly inspired by this concept, or Zora could be similar to what a Gaia Dragon in a volcanic area would end up like. Actually as the map itself, part of the world, like Zora indeed is. So I think that's quite a cool little comparison there too. Even explaining why they've never popped up until now is very much easily done, because they are so one with their environment, they're very still, they're very sedentary creatures. I mean, you just walk past one and think it was a rock or a hill or some sort of natural formation. You'd have no idea you came so close to one of the most dangerous creatures in Monster Hunter. It's not the most massive, but it's just so perfect an organism that is incredibly hard to stop, and it can quite literally weaponize anything that's around it. Even having its own petrified skin fall off it mid-fight to crush would-be aggressors is quite a gnarly way to go. It can also call the environment that it has called home to aid it and fight it against the hunter. Imagine not just fighting the Gaia dragon, but the very zone around you while you are engaged with it. That is a very neat concept, and one that I would love to see happen. So this was just a little kind of chit-chat on one of the most interesting concepts to me that Monster Hunter has ever had, and sadly as of yet not used. A monster that by itself could be at least like 8 more separate entries into the hunter's notes of the given game, that a single monster that could be 8 monsters with all that that entails is very interesting, because you quite literally could weave a narrative around it, exploring it, encountering different versions of it in different environments, at different life cycles, working out what's going on, have it be some sort of threat, and, well, Bob's your uncle, job's a good 'un. In any case, I hope the jaws of death, or at least some of its functions, do eventually prop up. I mean, especially the idea of a monster that so completely simulates with its environment that depending on where you fight it, it's a completely different fight without literally just being, 5 different subspecies of the same monster in the same game. I think you could make a distinct difference there and make it quite elegant. In any case, let me know what you guys think of, well, this guy and how you like the look of it. But for now, like if you have enjoyed this, subscribe and hit the bell for more, and consider supporting the future of this channel on Patreon down below. Until we meet again, a goodbye.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.